Over the years, I've talked about so many different interventions, especially during pregnancy. You can go back for all kinds of episodes to see what I think about various interventions, whether you need them or not. I've gone into lots of detail about the pros and the cons of them all, and that info is very relevant in your decision-making process. But today, I want to go a little bit deeper. Today, I want to talk about these underlying reasons that we as Christians should not be accepting so many medical interventions. Often we kind of separate faith and our health care, but everything we do as Christians is to be to the glory of God, including how we seek and receive care for our bodies. And I think some of this might surprise you a little bit, so let's get right into it. Hey, Mama, you have found your way home. This is If Mama Ain't Healthy, Ain't Nobody Healthy, and I'm your host, Lori Morris. I'm a Christian wife, mom, and midwife, and I'm so glad you're finally here. I know you're tired of feeling bounced around the system, never feeling heard or understood, and you're sick and tired of feeling sick and stuck. Whether you're trying to conceive, pregnant, or in the months and years after pregnancy, I want you to know I'm here to help you find your way out of confusion and into true wellness by working with God's beautiful design, not against it. From your physical health to your emotional and spiritual health, there is no topic off limits as we walk together through all seasons of motherhood. So if you're ready to step out of the world's way and into God's way of living well and loving life, take a short break from changing diapers and cleaning the kitchen again for the third time today and sit a spell with me. What you learn today could change generations. It's review time. Today's review comes from Jonadab25 from back in June. The title is How Miscarriage is Changing My Practice. I'm guessing that was maybe the episode that she had just listened to, or he, assuming she. It says, I experienced something like this with miscarriage and the medical billing that goes with it. I appreciate you sharing, being vulnerable, and informing your audience. Thank you for sharing about your loss and how it is changing how you serve pregnant women. God bless you. And God bless you, Jonadab25. I appreciate so much you taking the time to leave me that review. And I'm sorry that you've gone through a similar experience to what I went through. But the whole reason I do this show is to oftentimes share my own experiences, but then just share what I have experienced as a provider to help you all out there to know the reality of the system and to help you find your way through it. So I'm glad that maybe it didn't help you since you'd already gone through it, but maybe at least let you know that you're not alone, and it let you know that there's a lot of things that we've still got to work on in this system. And really it brings us into what we're going to talk about today, because blindly trusting the system is not in our best interest. That's really not the exact direction I'm going in with the podcast today, but it's still there always, that blindly trusting isn't always going to work out for us, and blindly trusting can end us up in a mess. And I appreciate you taking the time to leave that, and I'm going to move on to our topic, or I'm going to get going on that and getting off on a tangent, and that's not going to help anybody. So let me pull it back in, rein it back in, and get on our topic today, because today I want you to think about some things that really I talk about a lot, but I want you to think about it from a different perspective. I want you to think about this from a faith perspective, and I want you to think about it from the perspective of a Christian, and how we should be making our decisions, and why, as Christians, we really should be denying a lot of the medical interventions that are commonly accepted. Choosing to obey the gospel and become a Christian is so much more than a spiritual decision. Yes, the spiritual is the most important part, because only our soul is going to live forever. But how we live here on earth is part of that spirituality, and it reveals that spirituality. Our choices with our physical lives reflect what we really believe spiritually. If we truly believe God designed us, then shouldn't our actions reflect that? If we believe He made us to thrive and He made us to heal, then there should be some evidence of that in our actions. Too many of us have bought into this brainwashing that lives in our world, that sickness is something that we just have to settle for. It's just the way it is. And the only way healing comes is through drugs and through surgery. Otherwise, you're just stuck. But it's easy to fall for that, honestly. It's easy to do that when it's what we've grown up with and it's what we've lived with our whole lives. It's really hard to deprogram that part. That's part of why I'm here, is to try to get that part reversed back into the reality of God's creation and the beauty of it so that we can live the way He designed us to live. Today, I want to redirect your thought a little bit to get you kind of into that a little bit better. I want to get those old gears in your brain turning a little, and I want you to think critically about why it is that we as Christians should not be accepting medical interventions both when we're pregnant and when we're not pregnant. And what do I mean by think critically? I mean think it through, think deeply, think from a critical perspective of don't just accept things because somebody told you they were so. Think through it. Criticize it. Does this flesh out? Does this make sense? Does this line up with what you know to be true from Scripture? All right. Our health as women, when we're pregnant and when we're not, is all tied together. And one definitely impacts the other. So we really all need to think about it, whether we're pregnant or whether we're postpartum or whether we've never had babies at all, but someday we want to. It's all tied together. So I'm going to give you some of my thoughts here. I'd love to hear your thoughts too over on Instagram or in our Facebook group. So be sure to let me know what you think. But here's what I want to, where I want to start with this and why I want you to think about this, because I first started thinking about this several years ago. And if you've been around here for a while, or if you've taken my online Christian childbirth education course, which by the way is still available, just because I'm talking about broader health aspects, that course is still there. It will be there. The online Christian childbirth education course, it's a great course. It's full of everything you need to know in your pregnancy to prepare you for birth and postpartum and all that good stuff. But just want to throw that out there because some of you might think it's gone now. It's still there. You can get that in links down in the show notes. Back on track. If you've been around a while, you know, and if you've taken that course, you know how much I talk about this division that exists between faith and pregnancy in our world. And the more I live, the more I realize it's not just between faith and pregnancy, it's really between faith and health in general. It's just pregnancy tends to be the time it's more revealed. In fact, that's where the initial idea to even do the podcast came from, is my struggle really with why so many women who profess faith on Sunday morning yet run to the doctor helpless and hopeless on Monday morning, how those two can be in the same people. It's like, and I draw this diagram in the course, and I'll kind of, if you're watching YouTube, you're going to see my hands moving around a lot, but over here, I'm holding my hand up to the right if you're just listening on audio on your podcast. Over here on the right, or actually, now that I look at the video, maybe on the left. I don't know if it's reversing me or not. Y'all, I am all over the place. Over here on the right is pregnancy, okay? And that's all the things that you do in pregnancy, going to the doctor, getting all the testing, getting the ultrasounds, doing all the things that the world tells you need to do. And then over here on the left, or the right, or whatever, the other side, over here on the other side is your faith. And it seems like, to me, that the majority of Christian women have these two separate. They have their faith over here, like they believe God, they believe in God, they go to church on Sunday morning, they're studying their Bibles, and yet there is a fear and an anxiety that exists that causes them to run to a medical system that doesn't know or believe in God. Okay? And these two worlds are separate. They're two different parts of this same person. They don't really blend. But what ought to be happening is that those two worlds ought to intersect. It's like a Venn diagram, if you're looking. It's like where the circles overlap. And we should live in that middle section where our faith and our pregnancy choices, or our health choices in this case also, are all intertwined. That is where a Christian should be. A Christian should be making their decisions from a position of faith, knowing that God made us to have babies or to really have bodies that function. It turns out, as I said, that little diagram in my head that I made for pregnancy really applies to us in all aspects of health, because so many of us, we pray, we find out some diagnosis and we get scared and we pray. But do we truly turn to God with our health needs? Do we truly turn to Him? And before we get into the reasons that I want to talk about, I want to read a few verses from Scripture just to help you see that I'm not making this up. I'm not making up this concept that when we seek physicians over the Lord, it is not without consequences. And seeking the Lord, by the way, doesn't just mean praying. Now, it obviously does mean praying is part of it. That is definitely an important part, but also seeking the Lord is seeking the wisdom that comes from understanding that He made our bodies and that we can know how to take care of our bodies. We can know how to feed our bodies, and we can learn so much about that in Scripture. We can look at the evidence of how our bodies are made and understand what our bodies need and what they don't need. So I really quick want to read some scripture, some verses about Asa, King Asa. He was a good king over Judah, and you can read about him in 2nd Chronicles. So I want to start in 2nd Chronicles 14. Verse 2 reads, verse 2 through 6, excuse me. Asa did what was good and right in the eyes of the Lord his God, for he removed the altars of the foreign gods and the high places and broke down the sacred pillars and cut down wooden images. He commanded Judah to seek the Lord God of their fathers and to observe the law and the commandment. He also removed the high places and the incense altars from all the cities of Judah, and the kingdom was quiet under him. And he built fortified cities in Judah, for the land had rest. He had no war in those years because the Lord had given him rest. Okay, so his faith caused the Lord to take away all the wars so that they had time to get things rebuilt and get things in good condition, right? On down in verse 11. And Asa cried out to the Lord his God and said, Lord, it is nothing for you to help, whether with many or with those who have no power. Help us, O Lord our God, for we rest on you, and in your name we go against this multitude. O Lord, you are our God. Do not let this man prevail against you. And he's talking about an adversary there. So the Lord struck the Ethiopians before Asa and Judah, and the Ethiopians fled. So we see here the deep faith Asa had in God and how he knew the power that God had. And he looked to the Lord to intervene in worldly situations that were going on. Okay? This is Asa. This is the faith he had. And yet, in 2nd Chronicles 16, we read about where, despite his faith, he started putting more faith in worldly things. And let's read about what happens. 2nd Chronicles 16, verse 7. And at that time, Hanani, I'm not really sure how you say that, the seer, came to Asa, king of Judah, and said to him, because you have relied on the king of Syria, and by the way, I encourage you to read this whole story. I'm just giving you some excerpts that will, if you read just before this, you'll know what story this is talking about. I'm not going to go into it for the sake of time. Because you have relied on the king of Judah and have not relied on the Lord your God, therefore the army of the king of Syria has escaped from your hand. Were the Ethiopians in Lubim not a huge army with very many chariots and horsemen? Yet because you relied on the Lord, he delivered them into your hand. So he's reminded him, you know the power God has, and yet now you've forgotten it and you've relied on the king of Syria. Verse 9, for the eyes of the Lord run to and fro throughout the whole earth to show himself strong on behalf of those whose heart is loyal to him. In this you have done foolishly. Therefore, from now on, you shall have wars. Remember, he had no wars, and now he has wars because he put his faith in man, not in God. Then Asa was angry with the seer and put him in prison, for he was enraged at him because of this. He blamed the seer. The seer's just telling him the truth, right? He blamed him and put him in prison because he told him the truth. That happens. And Asa oppressed some of the people at that time. All right, now, here's the kicker. Verse 11, note that the acts of Asa, first and last, are indeed written in the book of Kings of Judah and Israel. Verse 12, and in the 39th year of his reign, Asa became diseased in his feet, and the malady was severe. Yet in his disease, he did not seek the Lord, but the physicians. He did not seek the Lord, but the physicians. So Asa rested with his fathers. He died in the 41st year of his reign. See, Asa knew the power of God firsthand, yet he didn't seek God with his ailment. and it led to his death. Remember in Romans 15:4, we read that for whatever things were written before were written for our learning, that we, through the patience and comfort of the scriptures, might have hope. That means the Old Testament is there for us to learn from it. Here is an example of a very good king who saw firsthand that his entire reign was being upheld by God and that God was working things out for him. Yet he chose to seek the physicians first instead of the Lord for something that you would think would be simple, a foot malady. You know, he didn't say he was having some kind of internal issue. His feet were his issue. And he sought the physicians and not God. And it led to his death. Are we seeking the physicians and not God? Is it leading to our death? Maybe not instantly, but our misery while we're here on this earth and our inability to serve the Lord because we're running into medical interventions that do not work his work. They do not work his purposes. They do not heal us. They just kick the can down the road. That's what I want you to think about. All right, so the main reason, let's get into the reasons why I really encourage you not to just run into the medical interventions, okay? The main reason, the biggest reason, is that God created you to work his way, okay? When you go to a doctor, to a physician, for whatever your malady is, they will suggest some intervention, usually medical, meaning they're giving you some pills or some medication, or surgical. They're going to do surgery, remove something, fix something, whatever. Let me ask you a question. Do you suffer from a deficiency of interventions? You don't. Do you suffer from a deficiency of pills? You don't. Do you suffer from a deficiency of surgical procedures? You don't. You suffer from a deficiency of a lifestyle that allows his design to work. That's where your deficiency is. So if you will identify that deficiency, and you may not know how to do that, that's fine. That's why people like me are here, to help you understand more about that. But your deficiency is not, when you have a deficiency, you need more of that thing. You don't need more treatments and pills and surgery. No, you need more of a lifestyle that complements the way God designed your body to work. That's what you need more of. And you need less of the things that are rampant in our world that make your body worn down and exhausted and overburdened with toxin and so many other things. The main reason that you as a Christian should not be taking these interventions lightly and just running into them and forgetting to seek God is because he designed you to work right. And the only way you're going to work right is if you work with his design. So you got to learn about that design and about what lifestyle is going to support that design long before you ever go into all the things, the interventions, the medications, the surgeries. And by the way, when you do those things first, the need for those things goes away. That's what you learn when you actually start doing this. You see the results and you see them quickly of how burdened your body has been, and how when you remove those burdens that you, through your choices, whether you realize it or not, have put on yourself, that your body, it's almost like you lighten. Not specifically meaning losing weight, but that might be part of it. But you lighten and you breathe different and you feel different because your body is now being energized and fed and treated the way God designed it to be. Let's move on to the next one. In pregnancy, I want you to kind of take that another step. In pregnancy, if you start letting them interfere with God's design in their interventions, where do you stop? If you make the decision that, oh, it's just this one little thing, but that one little thing leads to another, which leads to another, which leads to another, as we've talked about in the cascade of interventions many times, where do you stop? Where do you finally put your foot down? You go in, you let them do the tests in pregnancy. They're looking for things that you have almost no risk of. But while they're there, while they're looking, they find an incidental finding. It probably doesn't even mean anything in the grand scheme of things. But now you're, quote, high risk. So they feel they have permission to completely ignore your birth plan. They push you into an induction, which you really don't think you can decline. Because at this point, they've scared you into thinking that your baby may die if you don't do it. But you still hold on to hope that maybe you'll go along with the induction. Maybe it's not that big of a deal. You can probably still do this. You hold on to that hope that you can probably still do it naturally. Little do you know that you're already at a great disadvantage because they already know that the fear card works on you. And so they're going to play it all they need to for you to comply with whatever intervention it is that makes them feel better. Honestly, it has nothing to do with you. I did a call this week with a couple that is about to head into their first appointment with an OB. And this is not about them. This is just about the situation. They made reference to the ultrasound that they'd be getting. And you may have heard me talk about this on a reel on Instagram, but they were referencing the ultrasound they'd be getting because many practices, if you're not aware of this, many, I'd almost say the majority of practices today will not see you for your first visit unless you've already had an ultrasound. You haven't even met the provider yet. The provider doesn't know anything about you. It doesn't know if there's an indication for, or he or she doesn't know if there's even an indication for an ultrasound, meaning they don't know if there's a reason for you to need this. They have not in any way consented you for that ultrasound. They couldn't have because they haven't seen you. It's not the ultrasound tech's job to consent you, it's the provider's job, and yet they haven't even met you, so they certainly haven't done that part. You haven't been told what the risks are, what the benefits are, if there's any alternatives, if you even really need this or why you need it. You haven't been told any of that because you haven't even seen the practitioner yet. But what they will manage to find in this very first intervention before you even get in their door, you're just in the door of the ultrasound at this point, they're going to find something in this intervention almost without fail that will, before you even that it's going to allow them to label you and steal your choices that you thought were very important to you, take away your ability to have those moving forward. Let's flesh that out a little further. Let's say that ultrasound found something insignificant and yet it's documented. Because oftentimes they might put something down like, first trimester, y'all. First trimester, baby is, this big, and they put that you have a low-lying placenta. In the first trimester, a low-lying placenta means approximately nothing because almost without fail, it moves as the uterus grows. It doesn't move. It's just the whole uterus, is stretching out and growing. And so it gets far away from the cervix. It's never an issue. And yet it's documented. And so now they're going to want to look over and over and over again to make sure your placenta has moved. They didn't need to know anything about your placenta at this point. And yet, because they require this ultrasound before you ever see them, it's now documented, and now you are, quote, high risk throughout your pregnancy, even if it's not going to impact anything. You're now set up for more interventions, more radiation exposure to your baby, all the things, because they did a thing to you before they even met you. Then, later, you're led into an induction because it's just safer. And they also now have exact dates. And so now they can pressure you because they know, quote, know how many weeks you are. They may know how many weeks you are, but they don't know how long your baby needs. But they'll say, oh, it's time now. It's better. It's just better. It's just safer to get your baby out. And that all comes off of that live baby in the bassinet theory that you have heard Dr. Sue talk about. It's just this idea that like the sooner we get the baby out, the less chance there is for anything to go wrong that they're going to get blamed for. Basically, that's the underlying thought there. So they push you into this induction, and that induction is pain that you were never designed to feel. Intensity you were never designed to experience in your labor. It messes up the communication hormonally between you and your baby. That pain causes you to need an epidural because it's more than you ever were designed to handle, as I just mentioned. Then that induction leads to a C-section that will now make you forever a VBAC. Now, you may say that I jumped a little too far there, but remember that I've worked in this world. I have seen it happen countless times. And babies very often cannot tolerate inductions because those labors are harder on them than a natural labor is, because the contractions are longer, harder, and closer together than contractions naturally should be. And so they run out of reserves. They get tired, and they show evidence of that on their fetal monitoring strips, which of course you're going to have if you're in a hospital. And that leads them to say, your baby's just not handling this. We better just do a C-section. That'll be safer. And now you forevermore have had a C-section. You forevermore have to find a practitioner who will take care of someone who has had a C-section. So all of your choices from that day forevermore in all of your pregnancies have decreased. All because that first intervention before they even met you. Now let's take it even further. And I'm not trying to make you afraid. I'm trying to make you realize things happen. And the things I'm talking about aren't exactly rare per se. This aspect of it might be a little bit more rare, but it does happen. Let's say while they're doing the C-section, they just barely nick your bladder. It's all kind of right there together if you didn't know. And during that unnecessary surgery that you really wouldn't have needed had you never been induced, now you've got an injury to your bladder. And so now you have health issues from here on out that are going to make it harder for your body to work the way that God designed it to. Now, as a part of both that thing going wrong, or even if that thing doesn't go wrong, but you have just a C-section in general, you're going to get antibiotics, whether you need them or not. It's just flat out given to everyone who has a C-section. So let's say the antibiotics you're going to get during surgery alter your gut health in a way that it never quite gets back to what it used to be. Now, again, your body has a harder time functioning the way God designed it to. This line of thinking, y'all, can go on and on and on. There are so many things, and they are real, by the way. I am not making this stuff up. I have seen every single one of these things happen. It could go on, and it could go on, and it could go on. Again, I'm not trying to scare you. I just want you to know that these things are not without consequences. Another example before I leave it. Let's say that epidural that you had to have because the pain was just too much because it wasn't natural anymore. Let's say that epidural hits a nerve in your spinal column. And let's say now you have pain and numbness in your legs for years, maybe for the rest of your life, because that needle does go into your spinal column where there's all kinds of nerves and your legs are never quite right again. Seen that one happen. It's heartbreaking, honestly. This person in these examples I'm giving you, put yourself in their shoes. You wanted to labor naturally. It's just that induction that you were led to believe that you needed, even though you didn't, based on that intervention that happened before you ever met your practitioner, caused the labor to be more painful than you could handle, which led to all these other things. All of this is an attack on God's design. It's rooted in the fact that our medical system doesn't acknowledge or appreciate that His design is perfect. It doesn't appreciate His design at all. And yet, and the medical system certainly doesn't believe that it works well if they believe that it works because of Him at all. But you are a Christian. You believe the Bible. You believe that God made you perfectly. Unless you've allowed these doubts to creep their way into your belief system. I know when you look around, you see all the seeming failures of the human body. I know that you see all the people with all of the diagnoses and all of the bad outcomes and all the things. I know you see that, but I need you to understand and think through. Are these things you're seeing failures on His part? Or are they failures on the world's part? Are they failures of this onslaught of attacks from all directions on God's perfect design for our bodies, but our bodies are having to deal with things they were never designed to have to deal with? Think through that. Think critically. All the situations you see around you, for what you know of them, trace them back. When they tell you that the doctor said that they, quote, needed this or, quote, had to do that. Did they really? Or have they been manipulated since those first interventions in childhood to think that they need the help of the medical system for their body to do pretty much anything? Let's take that even a few steps further. Once you settle into the mentality that you can fix a symptom, you can fix a symptom without actually addressing the problem or the lack that your body has, where do you stop? Remember before I said, once you have accepted the first intervention that's going to impact your pregnancy, that's just in pregnancy. Let's take that outside of pregnancy. I asked you there, where do you stop? Here, where do you stop? Once you've decided that you can just fix symptoms, just chase the symptoms and treat the symptoms and take the pills for the symptoms and get surgery for the symptoms, but never actually address the underlying cause, where do you stop? At what point do you draw the line in the sand and say, nope, this isn't working anymore? Treating a symptom is the same as putting a Band-Aid on a gushing wound. It does nothing to fix the problem. If the Band-Aid is big enough, it might slow the bleeding down. But until the cause of the bleeding is addressed, you're just going to need more Band-Aids because it's going to soak through and you need more. It's going to soak through and need more. And meanwhile, eventually, you're just going to bleed to death. When you treat a symptom and not the problem, you may slow it down, but it's still going to kill you. It may be years, but it's going to get you if you don't deal with the underlying cause. Once you start with the Band-Aids and you keep soaking them through, it's hard to stop. See, first of all, the disease process, the longer a disease process goes on, the harder it is to reverse. The longer the bleeding goes on, the harder it is to replace the blood and for your body to heal it. It's certainly not impossible, but it's harder. And remember, old habits die hard. And when you've been in the habit of thinking that you can eat anything and live any kind of way, and the stuff that happens to you is just chance, you couldn't help it. There's nothing you could have done about it. It's hard to think that anything you do is ever actually going to work. And yet, hear me when I tell you, it will work if you just do it and stick with it. People who understand the physiology behind the bleeding when you have this wound that's bleeding out, and let's call them first responders. The first responders come to the scene. They see what's going on. They don't start with the Band-Aids. No, first they're going to put a tourniquet on, and they're going to put that thing on tight because they want to stop that bleeding now. They don't want the bleeding to keep going, so they put that tourniquet on. Then they pack the wound with pressure to slow that bleeding further. Now that the bleeding has stopped or extremely slowed, now we can repair the problem. And once the problem is repaired, we can take the tourniquet off. And once that clot is formed, we can take the bandage off. And now the body can heal. And we can give the body what it needs to heal, the nutrition that it needs to heal. But see, if you've chosen the Band-Aid route instead of the tourniquet and fixing underlying problem route, and if you've chosen not to find the root cause, to do the work it takes to find the root cause, the disease process that this bleeding thing represents is going to start creating collateral damage in other systems, and it's going to make it even harder and even harder and even harder to deal with. So we have to decide as Christians that we know God made our bodies to heal. And we know that if we give our bodies what they need, they will heal. And if the things we've been doing have caused damage that's causing us to bleed out, we need to stop putting Band-Aids on it. And obviously, I hope you're picking up that I'm not talking about necessarily actual bleeding. I'm talking about diseases that come up. If we deal with the root cause, we can reverse them and we can get back to health. Now, there may be a lot of damage done in a lot of systems. You may never get all the way back to 100% of what you were. But what if you get back to 50% of what you were? What if you get back to 75% of what you were? Is that not worth it? That's worth it. Feeling that much better. Imagine how much more you can do for the kingdom of God when you feel that much better. So why do Christians need to decline interventions in pregnancy? And why do Christians need to decline interventions in after pregnancy when they're not needed? Because if you don't, you are crippling God's beautiful design, the one He put into your body before you even knew you were a person. Before your mother even knew you were a person, He formed you. And you don't want to cripple the beautiful way He built you. But our free will as humans has the ability to make things that would have been great much less great. As Christians, we need to live our faith and not just talk about it. And I don't just mean saying no just for the sake of saying no and just being obstinate. That's not what I mean. I mean getting busy living the way God designed us to live. What does that mean? It means not trying to be men. We are women. We need to work within the design that God put into women and work inside of that design and stop trying to be something He didn't make us to be. We need to get busy being God's women and stop trying to be God's men. We need to stop eating non-foods. What do I mean by that? All the processed stuff that has zero nutrition, it has lots of toxins, and in no way does it nourish our bodies. We need to stop eating that stuff because it still goes in and our bodies still have to figure out what to do with it, but it's not even food. Stop eating that stuff. Feed your body the food that God designed it to have. It means not living an overfilled, overstressed life. We cannot function well as His women when our bodies are so just in constant, just SOS mode. Like we are like over everything, like overfilled, overstressed, overscheduled, overpressed, over, everything. Like we just have to do everything all at once. We never breathe and we never take time to bring it back down. Our cortisol is out of control. We are stressed out. We can't function the way He designed us to function when that's where we stay. What does it mean? What does it mean to live our faith and not just talk about it? It means not thinking that we can live like the world and still receive God's best for us. Asa, when he was living according to God's will, he had peace. He had a time where there were no wars and they were able to do the things that needed to be done. But when he decided he could live like the world and he turned to worldly influences, he'd no longer receive God's best. Thinking about the intended function, and the last way is to, as you think about the intended function of whatever thing it is you're dealing with, okay? Whether it's a system in your body or maybe the way our bodies are designed to function physically, maybe it's how we're designed to exercise or move our bodies. As we think of these things as Christians, think about the way God made them to work. Think about what you're dealing with. How did God make it to work? And then honor that by supporting it His way. I could go a lot deeper into that, but this episode's running long, and so I'm going to stop it there. But I just want you to never stop thinking about it. Take it to the next level and the next level and the next level. Think it through. Did He design me to do blank? Did He design me to eat blank? Did He design me as His woman to be having all of these things on my schedule? Or are these things that would be better removed from my schedule so that I can put back the things that He wants there? Did He design me to need these medications? Or is this an opportunity for me to get my body back where He meant for it to be to start with? I know this is a new way of thinking to some of you. So, let me know what you think about it. You can tell me on Instagram, you can tell me on our Facebook group. I want to know what you think, but I also want to know what you think from a scriptural perspective, because we can have opinions all day long, but we always need to make sure that we are tying it back to what God told us in His Word. And that's where He talks to us. And when we get into that Word, and when we study that Word, we can see so much about how He helps us to know how to live. And if you're one of those people, one of those ladies out there who is ready to really, truly heal by stopping that bleeding at the root, if you're tired of Band-Aids in the forms of pills and in the form of surgery, let's hop on a call together. I want you to see how my one-on-one coaching actually could be the ticket to true health for you. It's a totally different way of doing things. And if you want more of the same, that's fine. If you want to keep going to the doctor who doesn't have the time to actually help you heal, that's fine. But you're going to keep getting more of what you're already getting. But if you're ready to be well, if you're ready to do what it takes to be well, come to somebody like me who can empower you to learn how your body works. I can empower to somebody who can help empower your body to work the way that God designed it to, and to get rid of the illness and to get rid of the disease. If that sounds good, the first step is to fill out, it's a very short application. You can do that at morriswellnessservices.com/application. But coaching or not, I hope this has sparked some thought, and I hope that you will share it with a friend and then make plans to meet me back here next week. And remember, you can hear the episode now on Monday nights at 5 o'clock on my YouTube channel. You don't have to wait till Tuesday morning anymore. So subscribe and turn on notifications there. Or if YouTube isn't your thing, that's fine. Just check out your podcast app Tuesday morning. That's where the new episode will pop up, and I will see you then. If you were blessed by today's episode, please take a minute to share it with another mama friend you know needs this info, or post a screenshot on your Instagram stories and tag me so I'll know you loved this episode. Then come hop into our Facebook group to find your people and have some like-minded support throughout your week. Also, I'd love it if you'd head to YouTube and subscribe to my channel. You can find links for all of these things in the show notes. I'm so thankful for you, and I look forward to hanging out again with you right here next week.